Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for an Ignite Worldwide virtual panel. Before we start, if you are viewing this on a computer, please make sure you expand the control panel on your webinar screen so you can ask questions during the panel. You can do this by clicking the red arrow at the top right of your screen. You should have a panel that looks like what's on the slide with a box where you can send in questions for the speakers to answer. Let's get started. My name is Marisa Rabari. I am a technical project manager. I work for a company called Blue Origin based out of Kent, Washington. Ignite stands for Inspiring Girls Now in Technology Evolution. Ignite Worldwide is a nonprofit organization that hopes to inspire you to learn more about the variety of amazing careers in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. During the school year, you can participate in many fun Ignite events with your friends, like field trips to local companies and hands-on workshops. If you do not already have Ignite at your school, you can ask your STEM teacher or career counselor to start the program. Feel free to reach out to Ignite if you have any questions. You can send us a message in the question box on your screen or email us anytime at the email address on your screen. Contact us at ignite-worldwide.org. Today I'm joined by some wonderful speakers who all work in the STEM field. We will each share a little bit about ourselves, what we do for our jobs, and then you will get the chance to ask us questions or for advice. You can use the questions box on your screen to submit questions at any time. We'll keep track of all of them to answer after sharing our stories. Before I introduce you to the other speakers, I want to tell you a little bit more about why we're here today. The reason we have these events with Ignite is to address the fact that women and non-binary people are significantly underrepresented in STEM careers. This is a big problem because technology and engineering are a big part of all of our lives. The cars we drive, the cell phones we use, the computers that you're on, and even the chair you're sitting in, all use things every day. So it's important that many different kinds of people with different ways of thinking are involved in designing and building them to help make sure we meet everyone's needs. STEM careers are the fastest growing careers in the world, with more available positions than there are people to fill them. And these careers pay incredible salaries and help people all around the world. So if most women aren't working in the STEM fields, what careers do women normally choose? Think for a moment about some jobs where a lot of women work, and send your ideas in the question boxes if you want. Okay, so you probably know a lot of women who work in what's called traditional careers for women, like nursing, teaching, and administrative assistant or secretarial jobs. In fact, 94% of all administrative assistants are women. Now we're going to look at some non-traditional career field choices for women. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and if you're using a computer, there will be a poll where you can guess the answers. I share that STEM fields are an area where women are underrepresented. What percentage of engineers do you think are women? Take a guess in the poll. Those of you who said 13% are right. Only 13% of engineers are women. On top of this, only 4.6 are women of color. In technology careers, the statistics are a little better, but only 25% of people in computing occupations are women. Of that number, only 9% are women of color. So why does this problem exist? Why are there so few women in these careers? There are a lot of reasons. Many girls don't learn about these careers or aren't encouraged to pursue them like boys are. We are talking about this today because we want you to understand how choosing a non-traditional career can make a huge impact on your future. Careers in STEM are great choices for many reasons. Companies are currently very motivated to hire more women and non-binary folks, and there are so many career opportunities available. In fact, there are almost 3 times more computer science job openings than computer science college graduates. These careers are also highly paid. The average annual salary for an American worker is about $49,000 a year. What do you think is the expected annual salary of a software engineer? Take a guess in the poll. The correct answer is $106,000, more than double the average American salary. Women want you to know all of the different career options there are to pick from in STEM. There are a lot of careers people have no idea, who've never even heard of. Most women don't even know about STEM career choices when they're growing up, and they want you to have a different experience. Women in STEM want more women to join them so we can change the representation in these careers forever. We are lucky to have a panel of professionals who work in these fields. Now we're each going to take some time to share what we do in our jobs, a little bit about our background and our journey into our STEM career. Feel free to submit questions anytime in the questions box on your screen, and we will start our Q&A session after we tell you about ourselves. So up first, we have Madhu.
Hey, thank you, Marissa. And thank you to all of the listeners, all of the girls, my audience. I am incredibly honored to be here and talk to you today. I will start by sharing. So I hear you're all middle and elementary schoolers, little girls. So I'm going to start by sharing my own experiences from my childhood. What I remember of middle school is a lot of schoolwork. My mother being a math professor and my father being a research scientist, both of them working, which was a very non-traditional house in the university campus that I grew up in. And so many times I heard all kinds of remarks around my mother, remarks like, oh, you're working. Are you paying enough attention to the kids? We grew up fine. Me and my sister, two of us, we grew up fine. My sister is a software engineer as well. One thing my mother kept enforcing, and she was, back in the day, back in like early 1980s when I was in middle school, she was a PhD holder in statistics, and she was the one person I looked up to. So when I grew up, I gravitated towards engineering. She was very supportive, and so was my dad. But when I had my daughter, and my daughter is 21 years old now, when I had my daughter, the one thing that kept coming back to my mind on and on is I had a mother to look up to. How do I make it possible for my daughter as well? And right about that age, right about the age of, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grades, when they started introducing CS in schools, she was one of the hesitant ones. She did not think that it was natural for her to just go and start working in CS or, pick up a programming class or a programming camp or something like that, because they were boy dominated. There were usually more boys than girls. And so, she missed a few times. And then one day she came and she said, I'm going to try it. And it was perfectly fine. So we said, yeah, it's great news for me. You should try it. So she went to that camp, and then she came back. And the next day, while she was going in the camp, her demeanor started changing a little bit. Instead of waking up, dressing up nice, she was okay. Instead of putting her contact lenses in, she wore her glasses. A few things changed. And she went in there. And I noticed it, and it was like a week-long camp, and I kept seeing that behavior. And then part two came in, and so I kept thinking in my head what's going on. And it took me some time, and I asked her, what's going on? And she's like, it's okay. It's a lot of CS. I like doing it. They were doing something called as, I'm forgetting, Alice. Alice is a tool in which you can create stories, and they were doing something like that. And then I finally sat down with her one day and I asked what's going on. And she said, it's okay. We are all a bunch of geeks in there. It's all right. And I kept thinking, something caught my attention. It took me more than 2 days to come up with some thoughts in my mind, form them cohesively. And I sat down with her one day and I said, you use the word geek. Let's redefine that. You're a girl, you're strong, you're smart, you're intelligent, and you're beautiful. You don't have to hide behind those glasses. You don't have to look like a geek to prove that you fit in. You fit in exactly how you are. She listened for some time. She was okay with that too. But then she started, changing. And I'm very proud to say she is finishing up her engineering from, UC Berkeley today as a CS graduate. So I actually think this is a moment where I can influence all of the middle schoolers I have around me today, all of you, my audience. If I can answer anything for you, it will be my honor and my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Up next, we have Revathi.
Hey, thank you, Marissa, and thanks for sharing, Madhu. It's great to be here. Thank you all for taking the time in to come and listen, and I'm really excited to get this going. So just a little bit about myself. I work as a data scientist at Nutanix. As a data scientist, my job is to look at identifying patterns in data and essentially trying to help stakeholders or anyone involved make good decisions. And my journey to becoming a data scientist was pretty non-traditional. It started out in middle school. I was really interested in puzzles. I was interested in math, but I had varied interests. I could never narrow it down to just one subject. I always found myself interested in like social sciences one day. The next day, I felt like I gravitated towards math. Then I gravitated towards computer science. And it felt a bit of a struggle to identify, okay, what career can I find myself in a few years later if I'm interested in so many things? How do I weave all of those paths together? And what happened was I gravitated more towards economics. And I thought, okay, in my undergrad, I'm going to pursue economics and study how people make certain decisions. That was another thing I found myself to be very interested in, was like decision making, the art and science of how do people make decisions. And halfway through is when I started learning and leading back on my interest in math in high school. So even though I wouldn't say math was my favorite subject, or even computer science was my favorite subject. It was by getting out into undergrad and learning that math and CS had such an important role to play even in economics. And that's when I realized that, oh, wow, the beauty of math and CS can be applied to so many places, right? Today, amongst this crisis as well, if you think about mayors and our governors today talking about making data-driven decisions. So it appears that math and CS is used everywhere. And that was something that I reflected on in undergrad, and it took me a long time to get there and understand that. But what I was grateful for was back in middle school and high school, I decided to take math and CS courses with my friends, even without knowing where it would end up and how it would help me in the future. And it was getting out into the field and then realizing that, okay, there's this whole field of data science out there, which has so much potential, and can be used in so many areas. I can use data science today in geography. I can use data science today to understand climate. I can use data science today for healthcare. It's so varied and has so many interdisciplinary areas. So that's something that drew me towards it. And I think once I realized that data science was a career that I could pursue, I decided to do my master's in statistics. And that's when I completely transitioned from a non-STEM career to a STEM career. And in that path, I started working harder to do more coding exercises. Like I said, it was something that came to me much later, but I was glad I had a foundation that I could fall back on and rely on. So when I was about 19 years old was when I realized halfway through my undergrad that I want to transition into a STEM career. And that's when I started taking up courses in statistics and computer science, and just ensuring that I built further on my foundation. And then I applied to schools in the US and I got in here, and I'm here now. I've been with Nutanix for about 3 years, working as a data scientist, and I'd be more than happy to talk about or answer questions on transitioning, or say if you have varied interests, how do you navigate through that? How do you capitalize on all your interests that you have? So yeah, happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing. Up next, we have Ellie.
Hi everyone, Ellie here. So the reason I came here today is really for you, for our audience to have an opportunity to ask questions and to learn more about the STEM career choices and learning about how some of the lessons I've learned might be able to help you. So really here for you today. And when I think about kind of the path here, it's definitely, I think back to my parents bringing me to this country when I was only 6 months old. And so from a very early age, and as long as I can remember, I always never really fully felt like I fit into anywhere, because I'm kind of always in this in between, even if it was being at school and trying to explain to my friends why I've got this weird smelling lunch, right? So it's like always this life of trying to navigate, problem solve, finding where I can fit in as long as I can remember. And so even when I wasn't the best student, there were certainly some years that I was challenged where it just didn't click, and it was really challenging for me, and I got some really tough grades, and I didn't know what I wanted to do right off the bat, right? But I knew what kind of person I wanted to be, and I wanted to be somebody who was independent, somebody who could fight for what was right for others, and problem solving, that was very much like math and science for me. It made sense. And so that's kind of how I first came around to this whole STEM career. I met some fantastic women who were the head of their households. And when I asked, like, what do you do? It turned out that they were folks who worked in technology. And so they were able to really do things for their family. And I knew that's what I wanted to do for the people I cared about one day. My hobbies when I was younger really centered around my friends. How do I, help my friends do things? How do I help them get out of trouble sometimes? And again, the math and science actually did really help train my brain for how to do these different problem solving things. And so today I work at a company, SAP Concur, where we look at the technology, and I am in charge of our customer experience. And what that means is essentially connecting the technology to our people. And so if we think about everything that's happening in the world today, or whenever there's a situation, and we want to make sure that employees, which many of our parents and people that we care about in our families and friends, that they can get home safely, our technology can help do that. So being able to make it something that people can benefit from, that's definitely part of what I get to do today. And what I love about it is that I get to solve problems with technology, even though I'm not coding. I work with the data scientists and the program managers to kind of bring it all together so that we can make it something that can be helpful and make people's lives easier. So I'm really excited to be here today and look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you, Ellie. Beautiful story. Next, we have Kara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kara Coleman. I'm a editorial operations director at GeekWire, and I have a little bit of a less traditional STEM experience, largely because GeekWire is a technology news site. So we are a media company with a lot of journalists who cover science and technology. And anytime you're reporting or editing or covering a topic, you have to learn more about that topic. So I Growing up, I loved reading, I loved writing, I hate running, and all those things are still true. Another big passion of mine that started about when I was 10 is sailing. I grew up, I had the chance to learn how to sail, and I was really afraid of it at first, especially deep water was a big fear of mine for a long time. But sailing has kind of turned into a cool application of science and engineering. You have to understand weather and physics, and while I wasn't necessarily motivated to learn those in school, I really wanted to sail. So that inspired me to figure it out, and kind of hearkening to what Ellie was saying, the way you can apply things and problem solve when you use math and engineering can be so rewarding. So I studied international studies in school. I've always had a mentality that there are more jobs and more careers than you've ever heard of. And so it's really hard to know what you want to do or be because you might not have heard of it yet. Both of my parents, their careers they had multiple careers, and they were very different than what they studied growing up. So I kind of approached things with, I just want to do what I like a lot and see where it takes me. So after college, I spent a while working in the sailing industry. I was a coach, and that was really rewarding. But I knew that I didn't want to do that for the long term. So in trying to decide what I wanted to do next, I really wanted to be Seattle. I'm in Seattle, and it's a hub of innovation. It's an exciting time with the technology companies here. And so I wanted to be a part of that story, but from a different perspective. So I joined GeekWire about 4 years ago and have learned a lot on the job. Running a news site now requires a lot of data, reviewing data, making financial decisions, reviewing other companies' finances. We also have to deliver our news through a website, on mobile, newsletters, and that's where I've gotten a lot more of the technical experience. I can say that I would have benefited from more computer science and math training, but it doesn't, I just have this conviction that I don't want to not understand things. And so from that, I have taken some classes on the side. I've picked our developers' brains. I don't want to be ignorant or not know how to do these things. And they're only going to be more and more important. So I've found that it's super rewarding to know how to troubleshoot things for the reporters so that they can get that important story out. And I've also seen a lot of great stories where women like my fellow panelists are working in these industries, making a big difference, and there's a great momentum around it. So I'm excited to see where the story goes and answer less technical questions.
Thank you, Kara. I will go next. Again, my name is Marisa Rabari. I'm a technical project manager for a company called Blue Origin. I have 20 years of experience in the tech field. As a technical project manager, my main responsibility is for providing project planning and management for company initiatives. We ensure that our projects are completed with a time frame and a budget. And as a technical project manager, you're really looked at as the lead subject matter expert within the company regarding any technological concerns. So a little bit about my childhood. I grew up in the East Bay area of California under less than ideal environment. My mom raised my 2 younger sisters and I on her own. She worked as a grocery store baker. So she was gone all day. We basically wouldn't see her from 3 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we were raised by babysitters. As a young girl, I made a promise to myself that I would do better than my mom because I didn't want to expose my future family to situations that I was exposed to. When I was in high school, I decided that my best avenue for change would be through joining the Army. And that's kind of how I got into technology. The Army gave me the opportunity basically to remove myself from social distractions that were not going to have a positive impact on my well-being. The Army placed me in the hands of capable leaders who could direct my professional growth. And the Army afforded me the benefits of an education and introduction to career path that has brought me to where I am today. I spent 9 years in the Army. I deployed to both Afghanistan and Iraq 3 times. I worked as an information technology specialist. So I was responsible for maintaining, processing, and troubleshooting military computer systems, including satellites, which are really cool. With my experience as an information technology specialist, I saw a growing need for cybersecurity personnel. So I decided to pursue my studies in cybersecurity. When I finished my degree, I was actually offered a position as a technical project manager at Blue Origin. So I transitioned basically from being a system administrator to a technical project manager just because my company saw something in me that I could look at a problem and find an end to it. It's a pretty rewarding role. I really like my job. So some of the reasons that I chose for pursuing a career in the STEM field include felt like I had something different to offer. My brain thinks different from a man, so my perspective is different. And just like our presentation stated, I don't want to be represented in technology solely by the way a man thinks. Secondly, financial freedom. I own a home, a car, I get to travel, explore, and partake in my hobbies. And then third, technology is always changing. Therefore, I'm always learning and I like the challenge. So ask me whatever questions y'all have. And then we will follow up with Sandra.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Newman, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then talk about what I do right now. So I grew up in Ghana, which is in West Africa, and I really loved it because it's summertime all year round, really, really love that part. When I was younger, I really, really loved to read. Like even now, I still do. I actually won an award when I was 7 for reading 100 books in a week. So that's how much I love to read. I just kept reading and reading and reading. So I discovered my interest in science though when I went to a boarding school. Um, and there was a program, it was called a science clinic for girls, which I went to, and it exposed me to all kinds of science. Before I thought if you love science, you had to be a doctor. That's all I knew. But then I got to learn so much about what you could do with science. I met so many different women scientists, which is why being here is really important to me because mentoring is really, really important to me. I got that growing up and I want to do that for other people as well. So I got my graduate degree in molecular biotechnology. And what I do now is I work as a quality manager for a gene therapy company. So what they do is they make drugs. And my role and my team's role is to make sure that before anybody takes drugs, that those drugs are safe, right? So I look at a lot of documentation, a lot of data. I verify a lot of calculations. It involves a lot of attention to detail, but also knowing about molecular biology and genetics and about DNA, basically. So that's what I do every day, which I love because it feels like I'm being myself. I love to learn. I love to read. I pay attention to detail naturally. So it doesn't feel like work to me. I could do it all day long. But of course, I have to take breaks. I love doing that. I also love baking, which is a part of me. So my philosophy is that at your job or whatever you do, you bring your whole self. And I find that who I am actually influences what I do and makes me really good at it. So that's what I do now. I love it because I get to make sure that people get safe drugs. And I also love it because I get to contribute to society, making sure things are okay. So let me know what questions you have. I can answer just about any question you want to ask me. Feel free. I also forgot to mention that I teach genetics part-time at a community college. So if you have questions that are related to higher education or what you might want to do or study later on, let me know and I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Sandra. And thank you so much to my fellow speakers for sharing your stories. Now, we would love to answer some of your questions and talk more about things you want to learn about. You can ask what it's like to work in STEM. You can get advice for your futures or anything else you want to know. If you have a question, please click the icon to raise your hand and we'll take turns calling on you to ask your question out loud. You can also type a question in the questions box on your screen to ask. And we have our first question from Shannon. Why do you think girls are discriminated in the workplace?
I can jump in on that and kick things off. So I love that question. And it took me a long time to kind of navigate this for myself over the last 15 plus years. And I always break it up into two things: the things that I can't control, and then the things that I can control. So I think growing up, we're encouraged and taught to be good girls, to be nice, to be polite, to be team players, and that can sometimes get in our own ways. For example, if I get into a meeting, I used to always be the first one to raise my hand to say, "Oh, I'll take notes and I'll send it to everybody." But then it made it harder for me to actually speak in a meeting or to share my ideas because I was so busy taking notes. And so I think part of that is that we put others, and it can be a good thing to put others before ourselves, but I think we also do that more often than our male counterparts, which is also why I think there's this discrimination that it isn't always intentional, but it's just like, oh, so-and-so always will take notes, so I can just focus on talking, right? And then you never get to speak when you're even at the table.
So there's a second part to this question, and it was, do you think girls are discriminated in the workplace? And I can only speak from my experience. I can't speak for everybody else's experience. But the company that I work at, Blue Origin, we build rockets. It's really cool. We love female engineers, so we definitely do not discriminate against females coming into work. Every time we have an interview with a candidate, we make sure that we have females and males on the interview, and we make sure that we cycle in equal amounts of women as men into those interviews. So personally, I haven't seen discrimination in the workplace, but it doesn't account for everybody else's company.
And I actually would want to add on to what Marissa just said. That has been a very similar experience for me as well. I have not seen discrimination per se. I have seen what Ellie was talking about. If I volunteer, if I keep taking notes, I become the default scribe for most meetings, so I've seen that. But I've also seen, supportive people who are around you, who would build you, who would bring you up, be your advocates behind you. So I've seen not just women, but men counterparts as well come together as a team to help you in your career, as long as you are doing your job right. If you are not, then I've seen other people who would come and support and help you get to a level where you can actually start contributing at the level and in the areas that you are supposed to. So yes, thank you.
I think it's also important to keep in mind that if you want to achieve a goal, don't be scared to achieve that goal, and don't be scared to let people know this is where I want to be in 3 years in my career, because sometimes you don't know how to get there, but if you talk about it, somebody else will help you get to that level.
Actually, real quickly before we move on to the next question, because I think it's fantastic that both you and Madhu had great experiences and haven't run into that. Unfortunately, I will say that I've personally experienced discrimination, and I've seen others be discriminated against where I'd have to come in and step in. And so if you ever feel like you're being discriminated against, feel free to check in with your friends. Feel free to check in with other people who you feel like you can trust, because so often I put up with way too much thinking like it was just me and thinking like it was okay. So if you're thinking it might not be okay, try to listen to your voice and at least check with one friend. And I think that's also really important for us to help each other.
For sure. We have our next question up from Mindy. Her question is, would you say that you feel grateful to have a job in STEM right now with everything going on? Most of these jobs are ones that you're able to work from home, right?
Absolutely. I can go first on that. I've been, I think, since I started working from home, and this happened even before, everything that's going on now. I had the ability to work from home. I actually prefer to work from home, and I can do that with a type of job that I have. But it's been really, really great because other than me describing who I am, loving to read and all of that, I'm also an introvert. So this is ideal for me. I actually get more work done, when I'm at home, because when I'm on site, I manage a team that reviews data, and so I'm interrupted a lot, during the day. At home, I still have to have meetings, virtually, but it's very different than being on site. So this is bliss for me. The conditions that made it happen are definitely not ideal, but it's really, really helped me up. And I am very, very grateful to have this kind of job. I know a lot of scientists who, because they work in the lab, are not able to do that, So I'm glad that at least for what I do specifically, I can do it virtually. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to Sandra's point, I think even I can say I'm extremely grateful to be in this position where I can work from home and work seamlessly, efficiently. And I think one thing I'm really looking forward to, and I have been looking forward to, is how creativity with technology pushes bounds, right? You see such innovative things happening while working from home. You have technologies like Zoom and like even Slack, which helps you message your internal coworkers, coming out with really cool ideas of how to do this while working from home. So I'm definitely grateful for that, and also really excited about all the creativity that's coming out of this as well.
I second that totally. I am grateful, and I'm also excited about how much these changing times, and the situation is not ideal, but how much we can help even in these changing times. So for companies like Nutanix, the one that I work for, it's steadily going out and enabling others to be able to work from home, online schools, provisioning virtual workspaces, all of that. Some of these are technologies that, that my job enables me to do to help the society. So while so far I've been stuck behind a desk, assuming in my head that, yeah, I'm doing something that helps the society. I've heard about banks, I've heard about hospitals, I've heard about, our Department of Defense using the software, but this is the first time I get to see the real impact, and it's fascinating. So yes, I'm grateful.
We have another question from Kiana. She says, how did you know that you chose the right career, and were there any doubts about it?
So I can start. I was, when I took up CS as my undergrad, I took it up because that was a branch or a segment where I got into. I always knew I wanted to do something STEM. I wanted to do engineering. It was more electronics than CS, but there was an opening in CS, so I decided to give CS a shot. And so, talking right into the question from Yukiana, how did I know I chose the right career? I did not. I did not know till I graduated. I did not know even after that till I started working as a programmer and doing things. And then I had my daughter, and I still did not know if that still was the right thing to do till I figured out I can balance work life I can work from home at times when she needs me. I can stay longer hours. I can swap hours. I can do things. And when this work-life balance started coming in, and I figured out I'm equally passionate about what I'm doing as well, that's the reason I did not want to quit. I had my daughter very young. I was 23 when she was born. And it was like, I'm not ready to give up my career. I love it. But at the same time, I have this kid too. So, few years down the line, when she was at a stable stage, and I figured out I can balance home and I can still problem solve and I can still do the puzzles, the software puzzles. I can still write code. That's when I knew I'm in the right spot.
I think to add to Madhu's point, even I had no idea of what I want to do or what career I would ultimately take on. But I think one thing that's really helped me along this journey while I'm still figuring out what I want to do today is just being aware of the reality around me, right? So these are my skill sets. This is what I've learned so far. This is what's out there. How do I either, if I want to move to another career or move to another job, how do I develop skill sets that are relevant for today's time? So I think always having that self-awareness helped me in terms of, okay, today I'm good at math, but I'm not that good at coding yet. So let me take up some courses to get better at it. So I think just being informed along the way really helped. And I think there's this one quote by Steve Jobs, which I live by, is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backward. So it's only when you look back at it that it's going to make sense that, oh, okay, I did a math course someday. I did the CS course. This is going to aid in me doing XYZ in my career. So yeah.
I've often thought about it like something that slowly comes into focus, where your natural interests and the smaller decisions add up to kind of those bigger life choices or broader direction. So kind of being aware about what you respond well to and are excited about and what you've done, like you were saying, and then gradually it comes into focus. Like, that's what I really want to do.
All right, let's see. Questions from Umit. So we have one more question from Umit and Shannon. What do you like about your jobs? Is there anything you would change?
I think I saw one more before that about the interest in trying new things.
Oh, yep. It's from Laura, and she says, can you share ideas for students to learn more about their interests and trying new things in school?
So I'll actually take the second question and I'll start with what do I like about my job and if there is anything that I would change. I'll start by saying I've always been curious about things. I always wanted to do puzzles, these puzzle books growing up as kids, these Legos, 50-piece, 100-piece puzzle. Growing up in India is the max that I got. And that was very interesting. So we used to do it a lot. Coming into my current job, coming into my software engineering job, and I've been a software engineer for 20 years now. I work as the director of engineering. Now I have a team of engineers. We still problem solve. It's still amazing for me to see how different pieces of puzzle fall in place, one small piece at a time. And it's fascinating. That's what I love about my job. Is there anything I would change? There are a few things that I would change. I mean, particularly in times like today when we are so tightly connected and yet so distant from each other, it feels like the world has shrunk smaller. It feels like, some of us, at least in our areas, are on a hyperdrive. It feels like the home life has totally blended with the work life. So there are certain aspects that I would like to change, in the sense that, we probably need some kind of virtual boundaries. The work cannot always bleed into home. The home cannot always bleed into work. But overall, the problem solving is still there. Creativity is still there. Innovation is still there. And all of that excites me. Now, let's finish a round of answering this question, and then we can go back around some of the ideas that we can share with students around, classes, clubs, internships, things like that. I do have thoughts around that too, I can share. But let's finish this question first.
I can add my thoughts to the what do you like about your job. I think what I like about my job is also what I would maybe change. So GeekWire is a very small organization. We're very scrappy. So we have very limited resources a lot of the time, which makes it very hard. Sometimes we think of things we would like to do or new projects we'd like to launch, and we just don't have enough people or enough money to do that. But because of those challenges, we get creative and do things differently, or kind of maybe simplify the problem and find another workaround. So I find myself sometimes frustrated that we can't do some things I'd love to see us do, but other times I see how having to go through that kind of pressure cooker process makes the organization better and makes what we do better.
Okay, so I'll say something about what I love and don't love about my job. I love the fact that it's a fit for me, for my personality, and I think I got there because I became aware of what I like to do, what I'm good at, what comes easily for me. So because of that, I really, really like that it's a good fit. It fits who I am to a T. I don't, that's why I said before that it doesn't feel like work for me. So that I really, really love. I also love the fact that a couple of times in my career, because of my attention to detail, I've been able to prevent a drug going out on the market that could have harmed someone. So I really, really like that. What I do not like is a lot of times in the industry that I work in, they're the scientists and then the business-minded people, right? So big companies that sell drugs, of course, they're in it for profits to make money, which is understandable. A lot of times I've had to find myself contending with more business-like people because they're looking at making money. I'm looking at the drug being safe, right? So there's a lot of discussion, a lot of times heated discussions about what decision to make because maybe something that I would suggest or recommend might not positively influence the bottom line, right? So that's what I do not like. But it's a challenge, but I like it when eventually they see what I'm talking about. They can understand my point of view, right? Because I use data a lot to try to convince them. It's not my opinion, I'm just using fact. So even though I don't like that part of the job, I love the challenge in it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Ainsley asked about things you can do outside of school that are related to STEM. Hobbies.
Okay. So I can start and go ahead, Ellie.
Okay, thank you, Madhu. I actually think this ties into the piece about taking classes, clubs, just trying new things. I love the point that Kara brought up about sailing. And for me, it was like, I just wanted to be closer to the water. But yes, there's definitely applications and things that you learn while you're on the water. And it could be anything from learning to pick the right angle to learning how to stay calm when you're about to get dumped into some very cold water, right? So, just dive into things that interest you, because even if you think, oh, I might have wasted my time, I haven't thought of a single thing where I've tried where I didn't learn something new that I could use going forward. Like, you'll always learn something, or you'll make a new friend, right? So I feel like anything, there's no good reason to not try something if you're even thinking about it.
And similar to how Sandra says she loves reading, I think one of the biggest influences that I've had are just going on Amazon and looking at books that will help educate me or bring my education to the next level. I'm buying those and just reading them, highlighting them, taking notes, and constantly just going back and looking at things. Like I like to research. It's part of me as a person, is that I'm just generally interested in how things work. And if you break things, how do you fix them? Because I don't always want to rely on my spouse to do things for me. So I just, outside of work, I YouTube, I, look on the internet, I read, I research, I just get out there and kind of immerse myself. Even though it's scary sometimes, I just put myself out there and just try it. You try things, because you never know. Like, if you don't try something, you're never going to know if you're going to be good at it, or, what opportunities it'll lead you to.
And
I
just
think
to
there's
add
also
to that, I think, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, you can go ahead, Kara, then I'll go.
Yeah, I think there's also there's a lot of opportunities where if you think you really want to do something that requires a substantial time or financial commitment, using those internships or clubs or other activities to try it. Because sometimes we can think we know what something will be like, but until you really do it and experience it, you won't know. So it's just an amazing opportunity to dabble and then look back and say, okay, what do I want to do more of?
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think one thing that's really helped me, two things actually. One was newsletters. So I signed up for a lot of data science or computer science newsletters. They have so much information on podcasts to listen to, on just any, even practical applications, right? Sometimes in school, you're not too aware of how can these subjects be used outside. And these newsletters really expose you to that. And I think the second thing was just talking to people. Like, I would reach out to my friends' parents if I thought that they were doing something interesting. I would, once I was able to set up a LinkedIn account at undergrad or at high school, I reached out to people there to learn about their careers. So I just think talking to people really, really helped, because it makes you aware of things that you might not have even thought about before. Like, I did not even think of data science as a career until I came across a book that someone suggested to me. So I think it's just about expanding, talking to people, and also looking through like newsletters and looking through information online.
Also, a few things that you can do at your school, maybe even outside your school, is stay connected. Exactly like what Revathi is saying, stay connected. Stay connected to your science teacher. If there's a club in school that's offering coding, go attend it. Listen, if there's a speaker, go listen to that. There are other outside school activities as well. There are free courses like Khan Academy, Alice. There is also a tool by MIT called Scratch. It's a very simple drag and drop type of a tool in which you can build your own story. You can play it, it plays. It gives you a very, very basic understanding of what programming would be. What coding actually is. It's like drag drop different types of tools, make people walk, make dogs walk, build a story around it, let birds fly. See if you can make a movie out of it. So these are all freely available tools everywhere that all of elementary schoolers, all of middle school kids can just happily go and try out. And I remember my children being busy doing this through their summer days. They're done with the camp. They still want to watch more TV. Is this something that I can distract them with? They were able to. So you're all in the same boat as well, just like my kids. So go ahead, try these. Go to Khan Academy. If you have heard people talking a lot about programming, see if there is a small, simple course that you can pick up. They're all free.
Marisa, I don't know if it's only me, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you either.
I was muted.
Oh.
I was going to say, we have time for one last question, and the question comes in from Shannon. She says, who was your inspiration for pursuing STEM, and give any ideas or any, you know, your one last piece of advice. So I can go first. To be honest, my biggest influence was the girl ahead of me in line when I went to sign up for Army. When I went to go when I finished my test, there was a girl ahead of me. She said, "What jobs did they offer you?" And I said, "Well, I can build bridges, I could be a nutritionist, or I can do information technology." She said, "Girl, my dad makes $150,000 a year as a Cisco engineer." I was like, that's it. So really, it was just kind of talking to somebody else. You know, she kind of chose my path for me. But when I got into it, I just really, I loved building things from scratch. Basically, I thought it was cool. And my advice is that if you want to try something, do it. That's what I got.
I would say that my biggest influence have been a couple of people over time, and generally it's been my teachers or my managers, my science teachers. I think I got really lucky or really blessed because I had, you know, absolutely awesome teachers growing up. And then even during my career, I had really, really good managers who ended up becoming like mentors to me. So, which is probably why I love teaching now. I love teaching genetics because I get to inspire others. So my science teachers have definitely inspired me. And over my career, I've always had female bosses. So that too, I think it's quite unusual. I've always had female bosses, and they've always been in top management. My boss right now is the vice president of quality. So I've always had someone to look up to at work or even in my personal life. So my influence has been people that I work with, females that I work with, and that's been really awesome.
And I'll jump in quickly before I have to drop for my next meeting. Actually, interestingly enough, when I decided to pick computer engineering as my degree, it was after somebody was asking me what I was thinking about. And when I mentioned engineering, they were like, "Oh, that's weird. You don't really seem like you'd be an engineer." And I was like, "I'm going to do that one." So that's kind of how it all started. And any last bit of advice, it's to not try to do everything on your own. Asking for help is okay. All of us do it. Anyone who's gotten to where we are today, we've all gotten help. And so help is not a bad word. So ask for it, accept it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. I can go next. My inspiration has always been my inspiration has always been the group of people around me, exactly like what Sandra said. You know, my coworkers, my teachers, in fact, my friends. It's my friends who kept pulling me, saying, "No, you got to stay in computer science," and I stayed in computer science. So inspiration comes in many different shapes, sizes, and formats. You'll find them anywhere, everywhere. Just anything that challenges you is probably going to drag you in the right direction. One quick piece of advice, in addition to everything else that everybody has said, is it's okay to be scared. Every time you would go into doing something new, explore somewhere, find a new puzzle and start doing it, you'd be scared. You'd be also excited. So as long as you're scared and you're excited, it's okay. Go give it a shot, because one of the famous things against it's Steve Jobs is like, you'll miss 100% of the chances that you don't take. So go take that chance. You'll probably finish the whole 1,000-piece puzzle just by yourself. But yeah, do it.
One thing that has really driven me has been the idea of helping other people understand complicated information or ideas. So when I was ready to move on from being a sailing coach, where I had this great opportunity to teach people how to sail, something that could seem daunting, I wanted to continue that. And so being part of GeekWire has been really rewarding in that people can read and understand complex, important ideas, not at you're never trying to dumb things down. You're trying to communicate effectively and increase people's awareness and understanding. A big tip that I think about all the time is is time. Time is a really important resource. So how you use it during your days or with your extra activities. I've always been someone who had a project going on the side, and so time has been very valuable to me, and so keeping that in mind.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think about who inspires me, I think a lot of people inspire me around every other day, but I think some people that I always look back to are my math teachers. It's just so happened that I've still stayed connected with a lot of my math teachers through elementary school, middle school, and high school. It's just been nice to talk to them and connect and know how they're doing, and also just share about experiences that I've had that I think could potentially help them communicate with students today, or even that others have had, just connecting them to that. And I think the last piece of advice would be, don't be afraid to try out new things. I think just sometimes we always go into things not knowing where it could lead to, and failure is you are going to fail at times. It is going to happen. And I think it's been hard for me also when I got out of school, or even in school, sometimes failing at something did not seem ideal. It would always give me goosebumps or give me like butterflies in my stomach or make me want to cry, but just persevering through it, I think, and knowing that there's light under the tunnel really helped me. So yeah.
All right, ladies, thank you all for your wonderful questions, and thank you again to our panel speakers. We hope you all had fun today and learned some cool opportunities in STEM. When you leave this meeting, you will be prompted to fill out a short survey from Ignite Worldwide. Please take a few moments to share your feedback so we can keep improving our events. We also have several more panels. Like this that you can sign up for on our website at igniteworldwide.org/virtual-panels. Be sure to also check out the computer science and engineering classes and STEM clubs offered at your school. And don't forget that you can speak to a STEM teacher or contact Ignite anytime if you want to participate in more Ignite events. Thank you, and we hope to see you at a future Ignite event.